Hello and welcome to the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. Today's Friday, May 12th, 2023. In yesterday's investor presentation, as usual, there was an excellent slide deck that was provided during the presentation itself. And before anybody asks, no, I did not receive a phone call or anything like that to emphasize this. I'm pretty good at reading between the lines, and I do think this is legitimately incredibly important. And it's something that actually was starting to get talked about a bit more on Twitter. There's a community of us who discuss Stronghold Digital Mining quite a bit. So you guys know who you are. Thank you so much for bringing this up. So let's turn our attention though to the slide presentation that was included in yesterday's investor presentation. And let's specifically take a look at page 10. So right now, okay, that should come up on the screen here. Pardon me. So this says transaction fees providing recent revenue uplift. Transaction fees are up over 10x in May compared to the average of over the prior 18 months. So, okay, let's go to the next slide. I just want to highlight something. So it says here, transaction fees and volume have risen sharply on the Bitcoin network, driven by factors including recent innovations such as ordinals and the BRC20 token standard enabled by the Taproot upgrade. Okay, back to me for a second here. So that is something that I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into, just to provide a little bit of context and color about what some of those things mean. Taproot, ordinals, BRC20, what is that stuff? Okay, let's bring up the next slide right here. Now, this slide is something I just put together, so this was not part of our presentation yesterday. But again, and that's fine. I mean, look, we can't go into infinite detail, but let's talk a little bit about what's driving the surge in transaction fees. Okay, so Taproot. The Taproot upgrade to Bitcoin occurred on November 14th, 2021. Now, the Ordinals protocol, which was basically made possible as a result of Taproot, well, Ordinals was introduced on January 21st, 2023, or thereabouts. Okay, by the way, this information, it's coming from Google's Bard AI chatbot. I utilized it to help me do a little bit of this research during this relatively short period of time that I've got to put this together. So if there are any errors or discrepancies in this data, let's take it up with Bard, okay? Anyway, I think this is fairly accurate because I did do a little bit of homework just to double check some of the facts. But anyway, moving on. So we have Taproot, that enabled ordinals. Then BRC20 is built on the ordinals protocol and is a new fungible token standard designed for the Bitcoin blockchain that was introduced in March 2023. So that's not that long ago. Now, what's kind of amazing about BRC20 is that it allows people to write information to the Bitcoin blockchain, such as text, pictures, audio, and video, among other things. That is really, really cool. If you're familiar with Ethereum, which is another cryptocurrency project of sorts, they have something called the ERC20 standard, and that has become wildly popular. So I do think it's kind of cool that now there's something that's being referred to as the BRC20, which allows a lot of really interesting things on the Bitcoin blockchain. All right, so moving on to the next bullet point here. Every time a BRC20 token is created, minted, or transferred, a transaction fee is paid to the Bitcoin miners. Hey, that's us. That's Stronghold Digital Mining. The introduction of BRC20 has led to an increase in Bitcoin transaction fees. This is because BRC20 transactions are more complex than traditional Bitcoin transactions, and they require more data to be stored on the blockchain. Okay. Now, let's go back to the main. Okay, right there. Let's see, that should be sub-slide number 3. Okay, so basically now we're looking at, and I'm highlighting here on the sort of like lower left-hand side there, what this means from a practical perspective to our potential revenue, okay? So, as you can see, there is a pretty radical, actually, boost in the implied value per Bitcoin mined as a result of these transaction fees being dramatically higher than they traditionally have been in the recent past. In fact, I think I even read an article that indicated that for the first time in a number of years, transaction fee revenue actually exceeded the block reward. Now, I don't think this was something that was sustained over a lengthy period of time, but it happened. So the block reward is, I believe, 6.25 Bitcoin. So it's kind of amazing to think, hey, you had a situation where the transaction fees actually surpassed that, albeit maybe for a relatively short period of time. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, look, if you look all the way at the bottom where it says May 2023, so if the average price of Bitcoin is $28,287, you basically boost it by about 27%. So and that's by adding in the average fee percentage of block subsidy. I don't want to get into all the minutia of like how this is calculated, but in simple terms, it just means, hey, basically, Bitcoin is worth a lot more because we're actually compensated by getting additional Bitcoin. So basically, 28,000 really turns into almost $36,000 per Bitcoin mined, which is actually phenomenal. Okay, let's come back to me now. All right, so I hope that provides a little bit more information about what this all means and why it's so incredibly exciting. And I can understand why, there was this almost like this over enthusiasm, right, during yesterday's investor presentation to want to really, maybe get some follow-up questions about this, to learn more about it. Hey, let's have a discussion about this. What does this potentially mean, not only for Stronghold Digital Mining, but really for all of the companies in the Bitcoin mining ecosystem? So I wanted to really zoom in on this today. Hopefully this provides a tiny bit more context. Now, what is this going to mean from a practical perspective in terms of our little homemade dashboard where I'm computing Bitcoin priced in dollars per megawatt hour? So what I'm going to propose is that given the real volatility right now in this increase in transaction fees, right now, the chart kind of shot up. It's kind of like collapsing down. I think we're going to probably find some equilibrium, but I really do think that BRC20 plus who knows what else is going to be coming out, right, that takes advantage of all this stuff. I think there's some real potential there, some really, really cool, interesting potential there. So I'm going to propose at a bare minimum, okay, just to kind of get the ball rolling, that we add a roughly 5% boost to the price of Bitcoin. So when we do our computation to determine Bitcoin price in dollars per megawatt hour, I think just preliminarily here, and just to kind of get the ball rolling until we kind of craft collectively as a community what might make the most sense in terms of really kind of figuring this out and adding it into our dashboard. Let's just start at 5%. So we'll essentially be boosting the price of Bitcoin by 5% to take into consideration transaction fees. Now, I found a couple of sources that'll enable me to see somewhat in real time, kind of like, hey, what's going on over the past 24 hours as it relates to the percentage fee subsidy. And I can kind of like work that in so that on a daily basis, we're computing our Bitcoin price in dollars per megawatt hour, that, so that it includes that transaction fee, because this is going to be a big deal. It really does add a tremendous amount of useful revenue to our operations. Now, I'm looking at the time. It's a little bit after 4 o'clock. Let's do a quick jump cut here, and I'm going to pull up the stock price, see what's going on, and we'll talk about the stock. Okay, so it looks like we closed at around 78 or 79 cents a share on volume, what appears to be preliminarily just under 1 million shares. So we're more than likely going to engage in either one of two things: either applying for some sort of extension with NASDAQ to see if they'll just give us some more time within which to come into compliance with listing requirements, or alternatively, we'll engage in a reverse stock split. And I would expect that if we're going to engage in a reverse stock split, that it would be occurring imminently, but possibly maybe today, over the weekend, Monday. I can't really predict this, but one of those two things have to happen essentially. So we'll probably get more news and information about what's going to happen next week. But leaving the stock price aside, which was down, like 4% today, I noticed quite a number of companies in the Bitcoin mining ecosystem were down. Some were up a little bit, some were down. It is what it is. I'm focused at this point, really, I got to shift my focus back to operations because that's my true passion. That's my true interest. The stock price is a really big deal, and I get that. I really do. But you know what? If we take care of operations, I think operations will take care of the stock price, if that makes sense. Okay. And I wanted to also add that, yesterday, the entire Bitcoin mining, complex just got demolished. We could have probably come out with like blockbuster results, and we did come out with really, really, really good results. Like I sort of alluded to yesterday, it was almost like a lottery ticket. Where just the one thing that was just a little bit off, right, was our adjusted EBITDA. But even that, to be fair, that's like the price of Bitcoin isn't in our control. Grid prices aren't something we can control, so we are to a little bit of a degree, right, at the mercy of circumstances beyond our control. Everything that we had the potential to influence, we influenced. And I'm even more certain of that now that I've had a chance to really even more so dig into all the numbers now that the 10Q actually officially hit the SEC website. So I'm incredibly encouraged. I think we're doing phenomenally well. Now that we're sort of like reinvigorating our Bitcoin mining operations, right? We're getting more and more Bitcoin mining machines. Now that it looks like transaction fees, again, as was mentioned yesterday, we don't want to extrapolate too far out into the future. It's still pretty early, but you know what? This BRC20 stuff is fascinating. I'm really, really intrigued and interested, and I do think it might translate into something kind of magical, not only for Stronghold Digital Mining, but for all Bitcoin miners collectively. So, okay, there's that. That being said, let's stay positive, okay? Like, there's every reason to be positive about what we're doing operationally. As I said, if we take care of operations will take care of the stock price, right? It's just one of those things. I do recognize and want to acknowledge that, yes, we are somewhat obscure. I'm doing my part, right, to kind of help get us a little bit more out of obscurity. But you know what? It's a process. So let's stay positive. Let's be great. Have a great weekend. I may publish 1 or 2 more videos that delve into some more details about what, was released in our investor presentation. But if not, have a great weekend, and I'll see you back here on Monday.